mío. Ok, we're going to start. Vamos a empezar con la grabación y muy buenas tardes. Bienvenidos y bienvenidas. Espero que ustedes estén bien. I hope you guys are all well. Bien, sí. Hay algunas personas nuevas. We've got some new folks. We've got some old folks. We've got a little bit of everybody.
Otra Pat or Patricia.
Ah, sí, y dos Patricias and two Patricias. So I'm going to have to, watch myself on that. Bueno, aquí viene Ryan. Hola, Ryan, ¿cómo estás?
Hola, bien.
Bien,
Gracias.
excelente, muy bien. Ok, vamos a empezar. Little housekeeping, just para que sepan, just so you know, before we start. When we do record class, so that if you have to miss class, you can go back to the link, watch class, watch what you missed. A lot of people like being able to do that in case they get tied up and they just can't avoid, skipping class. And tomorrow, sometime, I hope, late morning, you'll get an email that will list the link for the recording of this class, and it'll have all the links for everything you see. So any little Google files we do, the links will be in that email that you'll receive tomorrow. The link to the recording will be in there. Links to any videos that we use during class, because in many cases you'll want to either maybe watch the video again, or it might be a video that's homework, anything that you need will be listed in that email, and I get that out the day after class. Para que sepan, just so you know. Okay. Oh, and para qué is going to be one of our topics today. Okay. Also, please, since we're at the beginning of summer, please do feel free to send me an email or in the chat box today or whenever it's convenient for you. If there are specific things, specific topics, specific vocabulary you dearly want to work on during this summer session, feel free anytime during this class, after this class, next week, 2 weeks later when it hits you, hey, I should have asked her about this. Always feel free to email me with those ideas. And I do try to cover a little bit of everything that people have questions on. Okay. Vale. Bien. ¿Entienden, no? Bien, sí. Fantástico. Ok, vamos a empezar con algo un poquito raro. We're going to start with something a little bit odd. Normally, I wouldn't do this, but for those who are returning folks, this is something that literally came up the day this dropped on YouTube, the day after our last spring class. So some of you may be wondering, why are we watching this? And the reason we're going to watch this little thing here is that we had spent a whole bunch of time on all those confusing and annoying words or confusing and difficult uses of using le and les versus lo and la, all of that. One of those bugaboo things that people struggle with. And this little video is very short, so we are going to show it. So apologies to those of you who are brand new. This is a follow-up from something we finished working on. The point of this video is to just show you that people use these pronouns without really thinking about them. A lot of people have questions for me, rightly, or I might put it out there as an explanation correctly that, oh, this is this kind of pronoun or that kind of pronoun. And, but when people who are native speakers speak, they just use words and they don't think about, why am I using this word? They use this word because this is the way you hear it. And this is going to prove the point. So we're going to have a really brief 4-minute intro so you can get a feel for this. And again, you're going to get this link later if you want to watch it later. This will give you a chuckle, if nothing else. Okay. Pueden ver, you can see the two folks on this right now, right? Vale? Mm-hmm. See. Okay.
Everybody, Q RuPaul here, and look who's with me today.
Linda, hi.
Linda does not make many appearances in the Spanish videos. For those of you who don't know, Linda's originally from Colombia and moved to the U.S. when you were 10.
Yeah.
Right? So Spanish is her first language. And so a lot of times when people ask me something in the comments, what would a native speaker and what would this, I often ask Linda or ask her mother, who's here as well, but not on the video. So I'm actually, didn't give Linda much information about what we're going to talk about today, but I want to talk about...
I don't like a lot of prep.
You really don't like a lot of prep. All I said is I'm going to talk about the redundant lay, and Linda was like...
What?
Yeah, she's like, I don't even know what that is. So I said, perfect. So let's just turn on the camera and see what happens. So we're going to talk about the redundant lay today, which is something that doesn't make any sense to you at the moment, but it is very stressful for English speakers learning Spanish. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to have you do some translation.
Okay.
Okay? So I want you to say, Juan hit him, and I would like you to use the verb golpear.
Juan lo golpeó.
Okay. So the lo is what? Him, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Juan.
Juan lo golpeó. Now, notice, fíjense, notice. He's going to use two different verbs, which are used, they're synonyms. They mean basically the same kind of thing, but they're used differently. So notice that. Juan lo golpeó. So he's asking her straight off the cuff.
So yeah, Juan, whoever Juan hit.
Oh, yeah. Whoever Juan hit.
Yeah, Juan hit him. So I want you to say the same thing. Juan hit him, but I'd like you to use a different verb. I'd like you to use the verb pegar.
Juan le pegó.
So this one is le, and the other one is lo.
Yep.
Why is that?
I don't know.
I don't know. Why is that? I don't know. It's just the way you hear it. Juan lo golpeó, Juan le pegó. Pegó, pegar, pegar takes that le. Golpear does not. Do I have an explanation for why? Not really. This is just the way they are used. But it's always phrased as Juan le pegó. Okay? Juan le pegó. Now, they're going to take this just a little bit further, not too deep in, but a little bit further.
Oh,
Why did you choose?
that's why you're here.
I'm just curious why you chose lay on this one.
Because it sounded right.
Okay, sounds right.
Because it sounded right. I know nobody wants to hear that, but that is sometimes the way it goes. And this is kind of an extreme example because, with dar, we've got just the verb dar. With decir, we've got decir, we've got contar, we've got maybe a few alternatives we could use. But, these two use different kinds of pronouns, and you just have to kind of go with the flow and roll with the punches, no pun intended, and know that pegar will take a le or a les, and then of course the metenos doesn't matter. But pegar requires the indirect, the le or a les, if it were a group of people, hits them, and golpear requires a direct, and that's just the way it is. I'm so sad to tell you, but yeah, it kind of stinks, doesn't it?
That's the advantage native speakers have. So let's go back to our thing. So we have a lay and low. That's already one thing. So let's go back to our first sentence using golpear, right?
Okay.
And let's change it to, because before it was Juan hit him, right? So now we're going to have Juan hit Jose using golpear.
Juan golpeó a Jose.
Okay. So there's no low in there anymore.
Yeah, I was like worried because I'm like, am I supposed to put a le or a lo?
No, you're overthinking.
Yeah, okay. So if we name Jose, if we don't say him, if we say he hit Jose, we just name Jose, right? Lo golpeo, which you saw earlier, lo golpeo, lo has to stand in the place of a Jose. That's, if we know who Jose is. But if we don't use the word lo to indicate him, a human being, we are going to name that person with a Jose. But because this takes a direct object, there's no redundant pronoun. I can't have that lo hanging around. The lo golpeo, the lo can't hang around anymore if I name a Jose with this verb. Okay? Fíjense, notice what's going to happen.
So there's no low there, right? That sounds right. It just vanished because before it was I hit him. So now that I'm mentioning the person, it doesn't make sense to have it there, right? All right, so let's look at pegar. So what was Juan hits him? or hit him.
We're
With
using
pegar.
Juan le pegó.
Right. Now we change it to Juan hit Jose.
Juan le pegó a José.
Juan le pegó a José. Here's the redundant. Like decir, you know, like dar. You generally, when you name the human being with these things that take indirects, you are going to hear that pronoun used with a José. It'll be more natural. It will sound more natural for people to use both the le and the a José. But notice her response was not Juan pegó a José. Juan pegó a José. It was Juan le pegó a José. So that le is really what sounds more natural. Would somebody understand you if you left off the le? If you just said Juan pegó a José, they'd understand you, but it sounds funny. Because the le pegó a José, including all of that, is what is the natural pattern. And it just is that.
Say it one more time.
Juan le pegó a José.
Okay. Why is the lay still there?
I don't know.
So
Why
what
are
was-
you asking me?
Well, what was the lay referring to the first?
The person that Juan hit?
Right. But now we've mentioned him, right?
Yeah.
So why is the lay still there if we mentioned who he's hitting? That's why we
Is that
call
why
it.
it's called redundant?
That's why we call it redundant.
Ah,
So now, from a native Spanish speaker's point of view,
I've never heard of a redundant lay or
See, and people use them, they don't know, like, you know, did you ever tell somebody I'm using a prepositional pronoun? Of course you, in English, you don't. Nobody does that. You just say it.
redundant low.
there is no redundant lay. There's redundant lay.
Oh, I've never heard of a redundant lay.
Yet you just did it.
I do it all the time.
You do it all the time.
I do it all the time.
So, from a native Spanish speaker's perspective here, why is the lay there?
Because it's supposed to be.
You heard it here.
Isn't that fun? Because it's supposed to be. I'll send you a little link to that. So a lot of times I know, and I feel your pain. Yes, you want to know why certain verbs use those indirect object pronouns super frequently, and they just do. And so what we need to do is just get used to, when we read, when we listen, when we watch videos, to get used to that pattern. You know, asking why is okay, but it just is what they use. Yeah. So we have to get used to the patterns. And what we want you to get used to when you do a lot of practice is to get used to patterns, of course. Okay. Vale. Bien. Okay.
Yeah.
We're done with that. Now we're going to put that in a drawer and put that away for now, for just a little bit, un poquito. Okay. ¿Qué vamos a hacer hoy? Hoy es un día de conversación básica, de cosas fáciles. Y vamos a hablar de lugares interesantes para escaparse. Lugares interesantes para escaparse. Sitios interesantes para escaparse. ¿Bien? Muchas veces queremos escaparnos. We want to do what?
Escape.
Escape. Get the heck out of Dodge. Yeah. Sometimes we just need to get away. Yeah. So we're going to take a little bit of time to do that, but we're going to listen to a super easy video example. We're only going to listen to probably 6 minutes of this, and I'm going to leave the other 10 minutes for you to listen to as homework, if you will. But we're going to base our conversation on just very general ideas similar to what you're going to see in these first 6 minutes. Keep in mind, this guy is going to talk a little bit about where he lives right now, but he is a Spaniard. He's going to use some odd colloquialisms, not a whole bunch, not every other sentence, but you're going to hear tío for guy, you're going to hear chulo for cute. You're going to hear a few colloquial terms that a typical Spaniard would use. Some of those little colloquial terms he puts in a great big box because you wouldn't hear a Latin American necessarily use that same vocabulary word, but that's okay. Está bien. It's good. So while you're listening to this, I want you to think about just sort of warming up your ear to somebody speaking at a very, I would say, moderate pace. And it will give us just a general theme for what you'll talk about in smaller groups later on. And I will model an example of what I would like you to do in your smaller groups after we watch the first 6 minutes. Sí, está bien. Feel free as you listen. He's going to keep most of this in the here and now because he's talking while he's filming. So this video is not about a lot in past tense. So we're going to start with some very easy stuff, which is just talking about him commenting on what he sees as he goes along. Es su experiencia de un lugar hermoso, un lugar muy bonito para escaparse de la civilización, escaparse del ruido de la ciudad, para relajarse, todo eso. Ok, bien. I'm going to hope that the subtitles work. Uy, espero que todo funcione bien.
Estoy dando un paseo por el campo. El campo inglés en primavera es precioso. Cuando no llueve, claro. Hoy hace un día maravilloso. Ojalá fuera siempre así.
Ojalá fuera siempre así. There is one thing that is a little bit tough. Ojalá fuera siempre así. If only it were always así, like this. Así, like this. Bien. We're going to come back to this ojalá in a little bit, about halfway through class, really probably at that, when we got about a half an hour left. We'll come back to this later. Ojalá. And notice how they use ojalá. And he's talking about, if only it were only always like this, meaning it isn't always like this. So that's why we've got that odd word in there, fuera. That means if it were, because in reality, it's not always like this. Okay.
Este es el río Chess. No es tan grande como el Támesis, pero es muy bonito, ¿eh? Muy bonito. Voy a cruzar este puente de madera, ¿eh?
¿Qué es un puente? ¿Qué es un puente?
Bridge.
Eso sí.
Pasar desde esta orilla del río hasta aquella orilla.
Y orilla es el espacio de la tierra.
Sí.
Al lado del agua.
Del río, sí.
Eso, ok. La orilla del mar, como en Miami hay una orilla del mar. En Hawái hay orillas en las playas y la playa sería la orilla, pero hay orillas también cerca de un río, como aquí. Ok.
Estoy cruzando el puente. Acabo de cruzar el puente. Ya estoy en la otra orilla del río Chess. Me encanta pasear por el campo en Inglaterra porque es todo tan verde. El problema es que los días así, con sol, con el cielo azul, bueno, más o menos, porque mira qué nubes, mira qué nubes se están formando, Los días así, con buen tiempo, es todo tan verde, mira. ¿Eh? Ojalá tuviera dinero para comprarme una casa como aquella.
Ah, ojalá tuviera dinero para comprarme una casa como aquella. Ojalá tuviera. If only I
Money
Had money
had enough money to
buy this house.
by myself.
buy myself a
House.
house like
That.
that one over there. Ojalá tuviera dinero. Ojalá. Oh, if only. I wish I had it. I wish I had it. And ojalá means that action of tuviera, having that house, doesn't really exist. It's a fantasy. Es una fantasía. Es un sueño. Pero no es parte de la realidad. Bien, sí, entonces, tuviera, qué verbo tan raro. What a weird verb, but that verb tells you if only I had it and I don't have it. That's why it's in such an odd form. But the ojalá is the if only, gee, I wish yeah. It's the gee, I wish I did something well, and ojalá is not even a verb. It's the phrase that means if only. Sometimes you hear it as ojalá que.
Sí.
Yeah, ojalá que. Some people routinely drop the que and just use ojalá. Y no importa, and doesn't matter. You can do either way. Okay, vale, seguimos. Vamos a seguir.
Eso estaría muy bien.
Yeah, that would be nice, he says.
Para que todo esté así de verde, claro, hay que pagar un precio.
Para que todo, para qué, you see an example, para que todo esté así de verde, for everything to look green like this, the así is like this. In order for everything to look green like this, hay que pagar un precio. You gotta
Pay a price. You gotta pay a price.
You gotta pay a price.
El precio es que llueve la mayor parte del año.
El precio es que llueve la mayor parte del año.
The rain for part of the
The price is that it does something with the weather.
rains.
Rains. Mhm.
It rains.
Majority of the year.
Yeah, most of the year. We would just say most of the year, and they say the major part of the year, but that's the way they say most of the year. La mayor parte del año. Ok, sigamos.
Se pueden contar con los dedos de una mano los días que no llueve.
Se pueden contar con los dedos de una mano. You can count on
One
the
hand.
fingers of
When there isn't rain.
when there's no rain, porque es Inglaterra, claro, ok.
Me gusta mucho Inglaterra, pero me gustaría más si todos los días fueran así, más o menos. Hay un montón de mosquitos, ¿eh? Qué asco de mosquitos. No todo es bonito, ¿eh?
Not everything is pretty.
Tenemos que pasar por este puente sobre una autopista muy grande, con muchos coches. Esta es la parte más fea de este paseo.
This is the ugliest part of this stroll, this walk. Autopista? no es coloquialismo. This is not a colloquialism. It's just, you know what, autopista es. Lo que es una autopista es una carretera, yeah, highway, ¿sí? Con varios carriles. ¿Qué son carriles?
Lanes.
Lanes,
Oh,
yeah, con varios carriles. Varios does not really mean various, it means several, lots of something, quite a few, yeah. And you see there, oh, what does this highway have? It has a bunch of lanes. So varios carriles, several lanes, okay.
Ya hemos dejado atrás la autopista. Prefiero caminar por el campo. Ay, ¿y ahora? ¿Y ahora qué hago? ¿Voy por allí? ¿O voy por allí? Hay una bifurcación. Qué palabra tan fea.
What an ugly word. ¿Qué es bifurcación?
The fork in the road.
Fork in the road.
Bifurcation.
Y sí, y bifurcation. Y no se dice fork, tenedor. No, 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 no. En inglés no es tenedor. Fork, bifurcación. Sí, un lugar donde un camino se divide. The road splits off. Se divide, it divides itself, it splits off. Ok, bifurcación. Hay dos partes, dos caminos distintos aquí. Ok, vale, bifurcación.
Bifurcación. He visto algo que nos puede ayudar. Alguien, un alma caritativa, ha dibujado una flecha.
Un alma caritativa ha dibujado una flecha. La flecha es el símbolo que ustedes ven aquí. ¿Sí? ¿Qué es una flecha?
Arrow.
Arrow, yeah.
Oh,
Our surname Fletcher comes from people in medieval times that used to make this so you could take your armies out and shoot people. Yeah, Fletcher means that thing. Flecha, arrows. Okay. Pero que una alma caritativa. Un alma
An
caritativa.
alma's a help and aid, right?
Sí, alma quiere decir
The soul.
soul. Alma es soul. Y caritativa. Bueno, una pista, clue, una pista. La Cruz Roja es una organización caritativa.
Charity.
Sí, Salvation Army, sí, es una organización caritativa. Sí,
Charity.
charity. Una alma, charity. ¿Qué diríamos Sí, no se puede traducir exactamente porque suena muy como un término muy raro en inglés, pero alma caritativa is a soul who has lots of charity within their heart. What would we call that person?
Kind soul.
Samaritan?
A good Samaritan, a kind soul, algo así. Oh, eso, sí. Ok.
okay.
Una alma caritativa ha dibujado una flecha. A kind soul has drawn an arrow.
Para indicarnos que hay que ir.
To
Que hay que ir
indicate
por
where
aquí.
we should go.
Muy bien, muy bien. Muy bien pensado. Mira, mira qué guay,
Well
qué guay.
thought
Aquí
out.
hay gente bañándose aquí
Here's just que guay is just how cool. That's just a colloquialism of Spain, but
en el río Ches.
bañándose.
Fantástico, me encanta. Me encanta el campo de Inglaterra. Bueno, me encanta el campo de Inglaterra los 4 o 5 días que no llueve, claro. Me siento un poco, Me siento un poco en este banco porque...
Es un banco.
Bench.
bench. Banco sí es como Wells Fargo, pero banco también es un lugar, una silla, pero una silla larga, ¿sí? Para muchas personas, bench.
Estoy un poco cansado, ¿eh? Bueno, me voy porque no quiero llegar tarde, tengo una cita, me está esperando una amiga, una chica rubia.
Me está esperando una chica rubia. Me está esperando. Una chica rubia me está esperando. A blonde chick
waiting for
is, yeah, a blonde girl is waiting for me. Ajá. Y el misterio que no vamos a ver es quién es la chica rubia. We'll have to watch the rest of this video later. Vamos a ver un poquito más, solamente un poquito
Que me
más,
gusta
un minuto.
mucho, ¿eh?
Tiene una cita, I got a date.
La verdad es que está todo muy bien señalizado. Hay estas flechas, por todas partes, ¿eh? Aquí lo podemos ver, ¿vale? Tenemos que ir hacia la derecha, ¿vale? Por aquí. Uy, otro puente, qué chulo. Qué chulo.
Chulo también se usa en España, así bonito, precioso, muy lindo, así. Ok. Cute.
Hay muchas flechas, que indican por dónde tenemos que ir. Venga, vamos a cruzar este puente. La verdad es que me encanta cruzar estos puentes de madera, estos puentes de madera con este río tan bonito. Qué chulo, tío, qué chulo, me encanta. Ojalá fuera siempre así.
Ojalá fuera siempre así. If only it were always like this. I wish it were always like this. Okay. We're going to come back to ojalá en un...
Este tipo de senderos me recuerda mucho el Camino de Santiago. Yo he hecho el Camino de Santiago varias veces. Fijaos qué maravilla de paisaje.
And when he's talking about with Camino de Santiago, I do not put it in my notes for you to read later. Camino de Santiago es una caminata. It is a hike, but it's a long hike. It is a multiple week hike.
Pilgrimage.
Yeah, it's a pilgrimage, right? Which now hikers use, less used, since most of us aren't going for religious pilgrimages super often, although people certainly still do that. And it can be a religious experience to go, be on foot for several weeks. So he's comparing it to that. Sendero es path, trail. Yeah, sí, eso. Okay.
No está mal, no está mal.
El paisaje, the countryside here.
Eso es una buena idea.
Buena idea.
Buena idea. Así el perro no se cansa.
Así el perro no se cansa. That way the dog doesn't get tired out. Yeah, see. And we're going to leave it here. So you'll know when you fast forward through to watch the last 10 minutes, you'll fast forward through till you get to the doggy, al perrito. Okay, a ver. Vimos esto, we saw this, vimos esto para preparar, para pensar un poquito en un tema. Vamos a ver, you're going to see these when you go into smaller groups, but you're going to have time to think about it. Bien, okay. El tema de la conversación de hoy, today's speaking topic here. Ustedes van a hablar en un grupo más pequeño de un lugar, a place, un lugar donde se puede escapar de Phoenix, de Scottsdale, ¿sí? ¿Y por qué queremos escaparnos de nuestra ciudad? Claro, por el calor, ¿sí? We want to get out on account of the heat, which hasn't really hit super hard yet. Todavía no, pero pronto, soon. Va a pasar, it's going to happen. y él quiere escapar de Londres, del ruido de la ciudad, ¿sí? De todas sus preocupaciones de la ciudad, all the stuff he worries about in the city, so he has maybe a different motivation than we have. Okay, pero ustedes van a hablar de un lugar donde se puede escapar, donde se puede escapar. Aquí, en nuestro estado, ¿bien? Puede ser un lugar al aire libre. It could be an outdoor area. Puede ser un lugar al aire libre, este lugar de escaparse, o no. Depende, ¿sí? A veces una persona se escapa al centro comercial para ver las cosas bonitas en las tiendas. A veces una persona quiere escaparse a un lugar como más un parque o a otra ciudad para cosas interesantes, con restaurantes nuevos, con teatro, con música, ¿sí? Lugares para conciertos, lo que sea, whatever it may be. So keep in mind, this place you may talk about could be any place you designate as your escape route. Okay. Pero yo voy a darles, I'm going to give you guys, voy a darles a ustedes un ejemplo de una parte de una conversación. Voy a contarles a ustedes mi lugar favorito para escaparme del calor de mi pueblo, aquí muy cerca de Scottsdale, y mi lugar favorito para escaparme se llama Horton Springs Loop. Horton Springs Loop también es un sendero un poquito como en el video, ¿no? ¿Y dónde está Horton Springs Loop? Bueno, sí. Esta caminata está cerca de Payson, entonces está al norte de nuestra ciudad. Está al norte a media hora de la ciudad, más o menos, quizás 45 minutos. Y aquí ustedes tienen fotos de cómo es Horton Springs. Es así. Hay cascadas, hay ríos muy pequeños y está en las montañas. Horton Springs Loop está en las montañas. Es un sendero, buen sendero, en las montañas, cerca de las montañas, en puro bosque, en pleno bosque, right in the middle of woods, yeah, en el bosque, ¿sí? Y se puede caminar en el bosque así. Es un lugar divino, de verdad, ¿sí? Y pueden ver con las fotos. Y me gusta, me encanta en realidad Horton Springs Loop porque es un lugar muy tranquilo, un lugar fresco, hay agua, hay muchas familias que van a Horton Springs para acampar. Es un lugar popular para acampar. Y muchas veces hay muchas mariposas en el bosque que son muy hermosas. Y a veces se puede ver animalitos, pero es un lugar muy refrescante, ¿sí? Hay personas que acampan, pero no hay un montón de personas, ¿sí? Y se puede desconectar del mundo, ¿sí? Ok, ustedes van a hablar un poquito en grupos de 3 personas, más o menos, ¿no? De un lugar preferido, a place that you really like. Since we'll have 3 people in a group, I want to give you, I think, maybe 8 minutes to talk. So describe it a little bit, say where it is, you know, if it's near, if it's far, está cerca, está lejos, no sabemos, don't know, okay? And you'll have your little questions from my notes pop up in your breakout room groups. A ver, momentito, tengo que crear los grupos aquí. Tengo que dividir y añadir un cuarto más. I need to add one extra room. 5. A ver, I want to make it pretty evenly divided. Okay, vale. Bueno, sí. Busquen, por favor, look for this. Busquen el botón que dice join, ¿no? Busquen el botón que dice join.
So, join? We push.
Yes, there should be a join button. Can you see that? It must have appeared.
I clicked it, but nothing happened.
Oh dear. ¿Qué pasó? ¿Quién es? Who is that? Oh, Kathy?
Kathy,
It does
I'm
say you're
room
not
3.
joined. Let me see if I can move you to a different room and if that will make a difference. And if you'll get a join button that way. Momentito, hang in there with me just a quick minute here. Oh. Nope. Oh, you're back with us, Kathy? There she goes. Vale, bien. If that's the worst hitch we have, that's not too bad. Sí, 8 minutos. I do want to give them 8 minutes. A ver, van a regresar en un minuto. Hola, sí, Pat, aquí vienes. Here you're coming in. Fantástico.
Marilyn, how to say nice
¿Sí? ¿Bien?
or warm? Nice.
Pregunta.
Nice.
Sí, sí, dime.
If you want to say,
How do you say
I-
warm?
to escape. I liked, or I like to escape. Would it be me gusta escapar, say, may, or do
Me, because I'm the one who wants to do it. Yeah, you make it a me.
so you add that on to the infinitive.
Eso es, sí.
Okay.
Me quiero escapar.
Okay. See,
Quiero
that's
escaparme. I want to get out of here. O me quiero escapar. Sí, y me. Cuando tenemos dos verbos. Quiero escapar. Sí, dos verbos. Quiero escapar. Donde se dice me es flexible. Me quiero escapar o quiero escaparme. Los dos son correctos.
okay.
Y no importa. Sí, es igual. Sí, es bastante flexible. Bien. Bien. Buena pregunta. Okay, we're going to take this as kind of a collective time. If there's anybody who's really got a great example they're proud of and they want to share it with the whole group, do it now. If there's anybody who said, you know, I wanted to say this, but I got kind of muddled up and I want to know how to fix that, now would be the time to ask that. Bien? This is always our sum up after a small.
Marilyn, were you saying escapar? You use a pronoun, may escapar, yo quiero.
Escaparse. Sí, por lo general se dice como escaparse. Entonces me escapo al norte. ¿Tú? ¿A dónde te escapas tú? Sí. Mis hijos se escapan de la casa para que no tengan que hablar conmigo. My kids are just getting out of the house. They don't have to talk to me. Algo así. Bien.
But if you use quiero, yo quiero, would it be yo quiero escapar? No pronoun?
Sí, usamos un pronombre. Sí, quiero escaparme.
Oh,
O
sí, escapar.
me quiero escapar.
Okay.
So that me can either come in front of quiero, me quiero escapar, or quiero escaparme. Son iguales. They're the same. Because I'm using two verbs, I have flexibility with where that word me can go. If I have only one verb, I don't have that flexibility in there.
So
But
is that
always-
considered reflexive?
Sí. Escaparse es reflexivo. Sí. How do you know that?
The same.
You just know. You just have to get used to. Yeah. It's kind of like irse. Get the heck out, you know? I want to get the heck out, escaparme, see? Irme. What else can you use? You don't want to use escaparme. Use irse. I want to get out. I want to get the heck out. Irse. Quiero irme. I want to get out of here. Es igual, yeah? There are ways to work around. Sometimes you may find one verb easier to use than another. Yeah, lo que sea. Pat, did you have another question that you were trying to ask? Because I think I had Pat and Sue asking at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pat.
And how do you say something is warm?
Oh, shoot. We're getting some delays here.
Yeah.
Do you want to type your
Yeah.
question for me in chat
Yeah.
box? Type your question for me in chat box.
Yeah.
Do that, and then I'll come back to that in case, because somebody else probably still has a question. ¿Hay otra pregunta? ¿Hay alguna pregunta? Or does somebody have a great example? No? Sí.
No.
Karen sí, porque tiene fotos de cebra. Sí hay. Wow. Okay. Bien. Nada más. No other questions. Wow. Okay. Vale. Muy bien. Okay, voy a mostrarles, how do you say something is warm? Oh, something is warm and not hot. Oh, depende. Wow, that depends. It depends on, is a person feeling warm? Is the air warm? Like the weather? Which kind of warm? It kind of depends. There are a lot of words, you hear calor, caluroso, caliente, yeah. But how we use that, with which verbs we use, it depends on if I'm talking about I feel a certain way versus the way the air feels, or is this place a cool place? Como, por ejemplo, Horton Springs is a cool area. Not cool like in neat, nifty, fantastic. I love this place, but cool as in the temperatures are cool, right? Horton Springs es un lugar fresco, ¿sí? Está fresco, or hace fresco, either way is good. Hace fresco in Horton Springs, right? But if I want to say I feel warm in this place, it's tengo calor. If we want to talk about the weather being warm, it's either hace calor or está caliente. Está caluroso, caluroso. Bien, sí, caluroso. You've probably heard that word. See, Pat, does that answer your question? See? Bien, okay. Vale. Okay, caluroso, warm. ¿Sí? Hoy sí, muy caluroso. Okay, vale, bueno. I am going to show you the notes you're going to get on this, because these are going to be notes that you'll get via the email. What it's going to happen is you're going to open up this little file. It's going to say notes from class today. It's got these little things you used in the Zoom rooms. And then do pull this up when you watch the last 10 minutes of the video, because it's got little notes on some vocabulary that will be helpful. Like that alma caritativa. Hard to really translate that, but a word like rebaño. How many of you are going to know the word rebaño? If you do, wow, felicitaciones. Wow, congratulations that you know rebaño. I know rebaño because of some very weird classes about 18th century mountain goat herders. And yeah, you see why I left university finally. But rebaño is a word that you may not know, but rebaño is a word you use for a herd or a flock when you have wildlife, right? So anyway, you're going to have a lot of words like this that will help you finish out that last 10 minutes of the video of Juan. He's going to use one term here that we don't use in Latin America ever, just so that you know, computadora y ordenador son iguales. Just so you know that when he talks about ordenador, he's talking about this laptop thing that all of us use, right? Y hay dos páginas, there are 2 pages with that. Okay, y bien. Vale. Also in this same file, we're going to have some things we're going to talk about now. We're going to talk a little bit about why do we keep hearing this word ojalá? Why in this video does he keep using this term ojalá? And many of you really know, some of you even love ojalá, because ojalá, whether you use it with or without the que, eso no importa, that doesn't really matter. But ojalá indicates you are really thinking about a hypothetical, a woulda, coulda, shoulda kind of thing. And he's got some very difficult verb forms, which are past subjunctives. We're not going to touch those for now, but we are going to take some time, because even last spring, a lot of people said, we start hearing a lot of things in these little stories and videos we listen to, and they've got little subjunctives, and I don't know why the heck they're using that, and why do we use it, and why does it look so funny? And yeah, so we're going to see a lot of examples of that. And of course, you heard some of the harder examples. So right now, I don't expect you to be able to come up with a ojalá que fuera, if only it were, or ojalá que tuviera, like ojalá que tuviera una casa aquí. If only I had a house here. But I do want you to know the ojalá que, because that never changes. It's always either ojalá or ojalá que. It doesn't have a real exact translation. We use it to say, gee, I really wish, or if only, or hopefully, that's what it means. But it does not get like a conjugation change. Ojalá is always ojalá. So you never have to think very hard, which is why ojalá is a fabulous, or ojalá que is a fabulous chunk. And I won't expect you to use the tuviera, but just be aware that that's out there. We're going to use the easier forms with ojalá today, and you'll be using more of it next week. So start to notice that fuera is a tough one. It comes from fueron, it comes from a past, and tuviera comes from tuvieron, which is a past. So basically, fuera comes from ser, S-E-R, really? Yes. And tuviera comes from tener, which tuviera doesn't really look or sound very much like tener, but that's what they come from. If you know the past tenses, you know that it kind of looks like that. So just be aware you may hear it used with past, but we're going to use ojalá in a different and much easier way. Super, super easier way. So let's take a quick look at this. Then we're going to have a little video on it, and we'll just preview what I want you to prep for in speaking for next week. Okay. Ojalá means that hopefully the next action is going to happen. But that second action hasn't happened yet. And that's why that verb goes into something that looks funny and sounds uncomfortable and sounds like somebody's doing a bad conjugation, but they're not. Okay. Because ojalá is going to signal something that isn't really part of our reality, something that is not in fact happening. We cannot use plain old present tense verbs. We use ojalá to talk about what you wish to happen. Okay. Well, you could put in present tense, but it would sound really funny to them. And they would think, why are you saying it that way? That's not the way we say it. So let's take a look at reality versus not reality, because that's something you've got to understand first, or well, something you need to be aware of. Let's put it that way. You may never understand it, but be aware it's out there. Si decimos aquí, hay is a present tense verb, right? It's that very general word that means there is, there are. Hay 4 o 5 días que no llueve en Inglaterra. We're talking about a fact if we use hay. That rain is a fact. Yeah. There are only 4 or 5 days that it doesn't rain in England. And that rain is a fact. And so we frame that, or we phrase it when we speak about it, as a plain old vanilla flavor verb, hay, right? Okay, but if I want to talk about for what I'm wishing for, and I have no clue if I'm going to get what I'm wishing for or not, I might phrase that as ojalá que llueva. Ojalá que llueva. So instead of 5 días que no llueve, 4 or 5 days that it doesn't rain, a fact, the difference between llueve and llueva is really subtle. It's just one little sound at the end, but it makes a tremendous difference. Ojalá que llueva, llueva, means it isn't raining. As a matter of fact, you're wishing for something, but you have no clue if that thing is going to happen or not. And that little magical change, instead of llueve to llueva, makes it into that magical and annoying for English speakers thing that is called the subjunctive. Okay. So we're going to learn or review for some of you, but maybe see for the first time for some of you, what kinds of situations are going to naturally use ojalá que llueva, because that's the way it sounds, right? That just sounds right to them, because it sounds right, because it's talking about not a fact. And I shouldn't say spring, summer. We're in summer. I'm forgetting my season. We're going to start to work on these. So what you should notice right now is that the AR and ER verbs are going to do a swap. They swap their conjugations. They trade off. And that trade-off of using what sounds like, gee, you conjugated it wrong, indicates to somebody else, oh, that action isn't really happening as a matter of fact yet. Okay? That's what it indicates. And English does very little of that. So we're going to, we're going to take another quick look at something different now, algo distinto. Por ejemplo, ojalá. Vamos a ver otro ejemplo. Si miramos esta foto.
Sí.
Si
We
es una foto de hoy en Nueva York, ¿no?
Sí.
Ay, ¿qué pasó? ¿Qué pasó en Nueva York hoy? ¿Qué pasó? What happened? ¿Qué pasó hoy en Nueva York?
Fuego en Nova Scotia.
Hay incendios, sí, hay incendios en Canadá.
Sí. El humo.
Sí.
Bueno, ¿saben ustedes algunos detalles de los fuegos en Canadá? Porque es importante, no vivimos en Canadá. ¿Por qué es importante?
El vente nos traigo.
Traigo en Bergen.
Yeah, el vente, the wind. Los
El viento, sí, con el viento, with the wind.
Traigo los fumes.
Sí, no es trago, trae, it brings, ¿sí? Hay contaminación.
Sí.
Hay humo, smoke. Humo,
Humo.
H-U-M-O, humo, smoke. Hay humo de los fuegos o hay contaminación. Hay contaminación grave por los incendios en Canadá. Y el humo llegó a Nueva York. Entonces, las personas que viven en Nueva York ahora tienen aire como nosotros tenemos aire aquí en Phoenix durante el verano cuando hay incendios, ¿no? Y nosotros en Phoenix, en Arizona, estamos muy acostumbrados a tener humo de incendios aquí en el oeste. Es algo muy frecuente, desgraciadamente. Es frecuente aquí en el oeste. En Nueva York no es tan común, ¿verdad?
Sí, es muy raro.
Exacto. Entonces, podemos decir, por ejemplo, ojalá que no haya contaminación en Nueva York. Ojalá que no haya. No podemos decir hay. Sí hay contaminación en Nueva York. Yes, there is. Es un hecho. That's a fact. But hopefully there will be no no pollution. It would be expressed like this. Ojalá que no haya, or we could say no hubiera. Ojalá que no hubiera, or ojalá que no haya contaminación mañana. Ojalá que no haya contaminación mañana en Nueva York. ¿Bien? Ok. Es la idea. That's the idea. Yeah. Hopefully there will be no pollution in New York. Okay.
So haya, excuse me, haya is subjunctive?
Haya is subjunctive. And haya sounds like I. Ya saben I. You already know I. You just have to learn that if we're talking about the maybe, woulda, coulda, shoulda, you may be hearing it as haya
Como,
instead of I.
como lo escribir? Haya.
See, haya, H-A-Y-A,
Huh?
H-A-Y-A, H-A-Y-A, haya. And you'll see that in the notes. You'll see it in the odd bells in the notes. Okay. But ojalá is one of those key words. And you heard ojalá a bunch of ways. So we're going to see, he's going to give you 7, siete, but I only want you to look at 6. So your notes are going to have things about this. You're going to get the link to this new video again. We're going to watch this briefly and kind of talk about how to use this, because this is something we're going to practice next week in class. So this is to give you things, a preview of what will be coming, some matter of fact things to practice it, and then some freewheeling freebie stuff. Oops, that you can use to practice it. Pero primero. Okay, tengo todo así. Okay, a ver. We're going to talk a little bit about what is a subjunctive.
Tal
Oh,
vez.
perdón. Tal vez is the one we're skipping. So you can skip like
Are
the
you
last
ready
minute.
to master the Spanish subjunctive? Stay here because today we're going to talk about the most important triggers of the subjunctive.
And you will always hear that term trigger, like, yeah, from a gun, because that's what it does. There are certain things that are a setup. You know how like comedians have a setup for a joke? They manufacture, yeah. This is the same thing, only in a different context, yeah. Triggers are a setup to warn people, oop, red flag, you're going to hear a subjunctive. And it won't be llueve, it's raining, like a fact, but llueva, it may rain. It may rain. But we're going to see some of those triggers here, not
And
all.
we're going to do it in a very practical and intuitive way. So let's dive in. I know most of you have been struggling with mastering the subjunctive in Spanish, and that's because it's really difficult to understand when to use it. But let me tell you a secret. It's difficult even for native speakers like me. If you're planning to learning the subjunctive by memorizing the grammar rules, stop right there.
Yes, because I could give you like 40 things. You're seriously going to memorize 40 things. So what we're going to do is take a little chunk of things that are considered triggers. And we're going to take these little chunks because they're things you hear pretty frequently, not because there's some obtuse, strange, obscure little detail. We're going to take some things you hear people talk about every day. Okay.
That's not gonna work. The best way to learn the grammar rules in a language that you are learning, it's by listening and repeating. And that's why I'm gonna show you when the subjunctive shows up depending on the different sentences that work as triggers. The sentence number 1 is no creo que.
No creo que. ¿Qué quiere decir? What does that mean? No creo que.
I don't believe.
I don't believe, literally, but we often use it in the with the idea behind it of I don't think that. I don't think he's going to buy that car. It costs way too much money. I don't think that child is going to finish her food. I don't think he can walk and chew gum at the same time. Yeah. You are talking about something that you don't believe it has any possibility of existing or happening. And that's
No
why
way.
that's why it's going to call up subjunctive. So look at his examples.
No creo que vayas a la fiesta esta noche.
I don't think that you're going to the party tonight. And notice that I think that you're going to do something, but you know what? I don't really know for sure because that time has not yet arrived. Okay. And instead of, that almost looks like boy, doesn't it? But it's vayas, and that comes from ir. Okay, so let's see another example.
Trigger number 2.
Oh, we're going to see another trigger, and I'm going to show you a bunch of triggers later on. But here's a trigger number 2. This is a different one you're going to be using. These are easy ones. I don't think that is one. But número 2, es importante que.
Es importante que. Es importante que estudies para el examen.
Es importante que estudies para el examen. It's important that you study for the exam. It's important, but is it happening right now? I got no clue. And why is it not estudias? It's not estudias, it comes from estudiar, but it's not estudias, it's estudies with an S instead of an as, because es importante que means I'm setting it up that, in the world of woulda, coulda, shoulda's, it would be a good idea for you to do this, but I got no idea if you're going to do it. And because it isn't really happening right now, and I don't know if it will happen. Es importante que is setting up a big red flag to say, I've got to use this uncertain, not part of reality verb. And estudies is a not part of reality verb. It isn't happening right now. We would like it to happen down the line, but we really don't have a clue if it will or not. Okay.
Trigger number 3.
Here's the one that everybody loves. Ojalá que.
Ojalá que. Ojalá que llueva mañana. Trigger.
Hopefully it will rain tomorrow. And the reason everybody loves ojalá is that ojalá does not change in any way, shape, or form. You can drop the que if you want to. Ojalá llueva mañana. It's just as correct as ojalá que llueva mañana. It's a little easier for you to incorporate that que, because you're going to notice all of these have ke's in them in one way or another. So if you're consistent keeping the que in, it will probably help you remember them. Ojalá que llueva, hopefully it will rain tomorrow, but it's not tomorrow. So it's not a fact. I don't know if it is going to rain or if it's not going to rain. So we're signaling that we don't know the result because we're not there yet. Yeah. And the way we do that is by doing llueve, using llueva instead of llueve.
Llueva mañana.
Okay.
Trigger number 4.
4.
A menos que.
A menos que, unless. Menos sounds a little bit like minus, yeah? Unless. Yeah, it sounds like minus for a reason, because the word menos does mean minus. But when you want to say unless, this is a word you want to be able to use.
No puedes salir a jugar a menos que termines tus tareas.
You can't go out to play unless you finish your homework, unless you tie that up and finish it. You're done with it, yeah? Terminar is to finish. So he phrased that as you're done with. That's the same thing as you're finished with, right?
Yeah.
But terminar, AR, it gets a termines because a menos que termines, unless you do this.
Marilyn, why is homework plural here?
Because he wanted to phrase it that way. You could phrase it as tu tarea
Sí.
or tus tareas.
Okay.
Tus tareas could also be talking about your chores around the house. Technically, it could be used in that idea, but that may appear as a singular or a plural. No importa, yeah, doesn't matter. It assumes you have many things to do for many classes.
Right.
Yeah, that's what it assumes. Okay, but it'll be a termine. A menos que termine. A menos que is a great big red flag. It's the trigger, if you will, that tells us, well, you haven't finished your work yet. So that's not part of reality. I don't know if you will or not. It's got to be termines, something indicating that this action of termines hasn't happened yet.
Hey guys, if you're still struggling with understanding...
And here we've got shameless self-promotion, which I don't really discourage, but we're going to pass through that. Okay. We've got our next
number
one.
5.
Esto sí es importante. This one is a biggie. Antes de que. You may hear either antes de or antes de que. And here it's really important again that little word que is in there. Antes de que. Before. Yeah. Before you leave. Have you left yet? No. Before you hit the off button. Have you done that yet? No. Antes de que, before, by just the essence of what it means, means that action hasn't happened yet. So, okay.
Antes de que. Necesito comprar la comida antes de que llegue a la casa.
Bien. I need to buy the food. I need to get the food. Yeah. Before he arrives. Before he arrives home. Before he gets home. Yeah, he gets home. Llega a la, and you would think, well, why isn't it llega a la casa? Because it's antes de que, before he gets home. He isn't home yet. The fact of him arriving at the front door has not yet happened. And because of that, you'll never, ever, ever hear somebody expressing this as antes de que llega. No, antes de que llegue a casa. Okay, it sounds wrong to say antes de que llega. Now, in a pinch, will somebody understand you? Sure. But do you want to sound like it's a natural sound to them? Yes, you do. So that's why we want to learn these. Antes de que llegue a casa. Okay, ¿vale? Y una más. I think we got
Trigger number 6.
one more.
¿Para qué?
¿Para qué?
Voy a estudiar español.
Y para qué? And notice, and we'll talk about this more next week. Sometimes we use para by itself. And it's should be that way. And sometimes it's got to be para qué. Para qué means so that. So that. Okay, por ejemplo. I'm telling you this so that you recognize how important it is. I'm cleaning so that my husband doesn't find the dog puke on the floor. So that my husband doesn't find, yeah. I'm turning on my light so that you can see me better. Okay. Para qué, when we have a que in there, is going to need subjunctive. I'm doing something so that you are going to be able to do something else. And so let's take a look at this example.
Para que pueda hablar con mis amigos.
Bien. I'm going to study Spanish so that I can talk with my friends. See? Okay. So he's going to go through one more, which is tal vez, just so that you know, para que sepan. Oh, para que sepan, just so you know, para que sepan means maybe. It's one of the ways of saying maybe, but we're not going to go to the maybe realm because the maybe realm is kind of iffy. And those first 6, however, are very clear cut. Okay, so les voy a mostrar. I'm going to show you guys what you're going to get. I'll send you the link to that again. Vale la pena. It is really, really worth it to look at that one more time. You're going to get that. You're also going to get a link to a little video that shows you how you form those verbs like llegue or llueva or termines. Yeah. And it's going to be super, super shorty, easy to see, easy to watch video. Okay. So in that same set of notes where you have all the vocabulary for Juan cerca del Río Ches, you're going to have, as part of that great big file, here are the 6 triggers I'm going to want you to use next week. So you're going to have time to kind of, think about it, mull it over, watch that video another time. Think about the examples you're going to see and know which triggers you need to know. There's no way you would ever want to know what are all the situations I need for subjunctive, because there are too many of them and it would be super frustrating. So we're going to take things that people use a lot when they're just chit-chatting with people. Okay, we're going to take those. So, well, what do we use after that word que, after the trigger? Because notice these are no creo que, es importante que, ojalá que. Well, that one may lose the que, but it'll usually have que. Get used to using the que. That way you don't forget it. A menos que, antes de que, para que. And notice they all end in que. But what comes after que?
Infinitive.
It won't be an infinitive in this case. It's going to be a subjunctive. So here's what's going to happen. What do you do with that verb after the trigger? After the trigger, and the trigger is always going to have, that word que. Yeah. It might sound wrong, but you know, those AR verbs are going to take ER-IR endings, and ER-IR verbs are going to take AR endings. They switch, they swap out the endings. So instead of saying llega, you'll use llegue, and that UE is just a spelling thing to make the G go to the hard G sound. So just think llega instead of a, it's an e at the end, llegue, okay? Instead of estudias, you swap it out for estudies. Instead of, if we wanted to say understand, we understand, instead of entendemos, which is the way we say we understand, you use entendamos. Instead of hemos, it's amos, yeah? If you want to say eat, como, I'm eating. Instead of using como, you'd swap out and use coma, because como comes from comer, an ER verb, you would use coma for that verb form in subjunctive. A little note so you know, yo conjugations in subjunctive use the same exact verbs as the a usted form. So, yeah, you won't have an o at the end for a yo conjugation in subjunctive. It'll look like the a usted one, okay? Same thing. And I'm going to give you a few oddballs that don't follow that little rule that you see up above. There are some oddballs. We're not going to look at all of them right now. Para que sepan, so you know. Para que sepan. Here are a few super common verbs and how they will look in subjunctive. Haya. Yeah. Ojalá que no haya contaminación en Nueva York. Hopefully there won't be more pollution in Nueva York, New York. Tener will look like tenga. Venir will look like venga. Ser will look like sea. Ir will look like and sound like vaya. Okay. And of course, those can have like a nosotros ending would be tengamos, vengamos, seamos, vayamos, yeah? A tu ending will have an S at the end, like you're used to seeing, you know, and hearing a tu verb, right? Tengas, vengas, seas, vayas, like that, okay? Bien? You'll have a little video. I think it's only like between 3 and 5 minutes long. It's going to show you the basics of what those will look like, okay? So what you're going to do to practice is I am going to give you some practice. These are all in the same file. You're going to prep, how do I say these ideas? And the verb in parentheses is something you have to change to make it a subjunctive verb, because all of these are going to have triggers. And see if you can figure out what these sentences mean. Once you figure out, you know, what we do with the verbs there, yeah? So you're going to prep all these. They're using just the triggers he showed in those videos. Then you got another page and just more examples, different kinds of triggers, but the triggers are all in italics. So you can figure those out pretty easily, right? So, you know, you're going to figure out what happens with that word venir. You're going to figure out, hey, what happens with that word limpiar? Well, something has to happen because it's following an antes de que, yeah? So you're going to have, these are very mechanical. These 2 pages are very mechanical ways to practice subjunctive. And then I want you to pick any of those triggers, 2 of them, and come up with an original idea. Bien? That's what you're going to do for me. And you're going to watch the rest of Juan's video about, you know, la caminata cerca del Río Ches, that little hike by the river. Oh, and you got to find out la rubia, la cita con la rubia.
Sí,
La güera.
sí.
You got to find out the date with the blonde. Okay. Un pequeño misterio para la semana que viene. Bien. And I think that's a big enough chunk for today. See? Bien. Vale?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll practice all these next week. We'll have some other listening things and just like super common everyday stuff to talk about that won't necessarily make you use subjunctive, but we're going to mix it a little bit, you know, a little bit of talking about regular stuff that does just use present and past. And then we're going to plug in some of this new idea of subjunctive. ¿Todo bien?
Sí.
Yes.
Excelente, excelente. Next week, I think we'll have an article. I think we won't do that yet this week because the subjunctive thing is very frustrating for a lot of people. So just kind of mulling it over and looking at the examples will help us. Bien? Vale.
Yeah.
Bueno, and I do encourage you to send me any ideas of specific things you want to work on, whether it's thematic with certain kind of vocabulary or talking about the past or talking about the future, whatever you want to review, you know, send me a little email or message about what you would like to do during the summer months. Bien? Okay.
Right.
Dale, fantástico. Fue un placer ver a todo el mundo, ¿verdad? Yeah, really a pleasure to see everybody today. ¿Sí? Y espero que, ojalá que ustedes tengan buena semana. Ojalá que ustedes tengan una semana fantástica, una semana sin 100 grados de calor. Ojalá que no haya incendios aquí, ¿sí? Hay 400 incendios en Canadá.
Ahora?
La cantidad de
Really?
incendios en Canadá es 400. 400. ¡Ay, qué horror! Me quejo cuando hay un incendio aquí. Y ellos tienen muchísimos problemas con eso. Ay, qué problema, qué lío. Ok. Ojalá que tengan muy buena semana, que tengan buen fin de semana, ¿sí? Y nos vemos más tarde. See you guys later.
Igualmente. Adiós.
Bien, igualmente, sí. Bien, y cuídense, por